G'day guys, thanks for watching. I've been doing a fair bit of timed figure studies. Recently, I invested a fair chunk of time into learning and then putting together a 2D effects animation reel. But I tried to keep up with my timed figure drawing at least weekly if I couldn't get it in every day. And now I have pages of these sketches which look kind of good in the aggregate. Obviously, if you single some of them out, there's some pretty average ones and they were all done under different time constraints. So yeah, I prefer to slap them all together on one page and just scroll through. That said, I thought it would be a fun idea to take a few of the ones that I actually quite like and see if I can polish them up a little bit. I picked this guy because I liked his tiny pinhead and really muscular large body. It's almost like some unintentional stylization. Obviously, it looks this way because it was a timed sketch and I just basically messed up the proportions and didn't have time to correct them, but in the end, I think it actually serves to give him some character. So I thought this would be a good one to sort of clean up a little bit and try to do some rendering on. Starting in values, I was really trying to follow the reference photo pretty closely. Rendering and colors in general are kind of one of my weaker areas, and so it was helpful to have that photo there to reference as I drew. I still think it was a pretty messy render overall, but once I was able to add the red tint overlay, it started to look a lot more natural, like there was actually a blush on the skin. So for this next sketch, I really just liked the shape of the appendages and I felt like I had captured the pose really well. Unfortunately, even though I started with a pretty good base sketch, I really didn't like how this one turned out. It kind of suffered from a plethora of little problems, such as poorly designed anatomy. Just take a look at the hands for evidence of that, but also the larger problem of me not really having a direction. Was I trying to design a clean, cel-shaded look or a more labor-intensive render? This sketch is one of my favorites. The original reference photo was actually one that I commissioned from a friend and a model that were living in Japan at the time. I had some ideas about producing apparel and they were both willing to do the photo shoot for well under what their value should have been. I think probably the drawing itself doesn't actually resemble the original reference photo too much, especially once color is added and I start making some choices with regard to stylization. This was an odd one because I think it's probably the best outcome so far, and yet I did struggle a lot with the choices I was making, and I think I still prefer the black and white version to the final colored image. So just remember as we're going through these that I'm improving. When I get drawings like this, I have to keep telling myself that that's what's happening. This one is probably the weirdest drawing I did of the bunch. I took the bare remnants of a 30-second timed portrait sketch and basically attempted to construct a face from it without relying on any other reference. This was really more of a face anatomy test for me. Made particularly difficult because the expression in this timed sketch was really quite an odd one. I don't know, I don't think I'm winning any awards for the prettiest portrait for this one, but it's kind of a unique and interesting looking head. While we are still thinking about portraits, I might edit in this quick portrait study I did of legendary actor John Cho. I went through a little period of drawing all of the live action cast for Cowboy Bebop. I feel like John Cho probably had the hardest task of everyone in that series because nobody you could possibly cast would be cool enough to fill the role of animated Spike. But I ended up liking him. Anyways, I was kind of proud of this portrait study initially, but I think I could have done a little better, especially with regards to that ear connection. Oh well, next time. Okay, so I think this next one turned out great. The building blocks for a good drawing were all basically there. There was something a little weird going on with the shoulder angle, and obviously I had to get a little creative with what was happening with the hair and the hands. But overall, I think this was probably the smoothest process. Even when it came to coloring, it was just a matter of doing the whole skin color pink, moving across the color wheel to a complementary green, and then I had this kind of Poison Ivy-esque color scheme. It might not be the best thing you've ever seen, but add in a background heavy on the blur, and you kind of have a little mini scene for very little effort. This was a time sketch that I did to try and get better at doing different types of body shapes. Usually I'm drawing some sort of super fit guy or some sort of super fit girl, and I think it's important for me to get better at drawing characters that come in all shapes and sizes. That being said, I don't know how successful this particular drawing actually was. I had designs on giving her a sort of half-shaved head, kind of a cool punk haircut. But in addition to certain construction issues, like the fact that her far side arm seems to be doing something that's anatomically odd, doesn't the whole picture just seem sort of flat? Add to that the fact that I gave this picture kind of a token effort of coloring. I don't think I ended up doing the overall drawing any favors. To wind this up, I thought I'd go for a little low-effort threefer. I liked different things about all three of these sketches. As far as the portrait goes, my main consideration was that it was basically a complete portrait. Certainly I had to clean up some lines, but it wasn't like the other portrait where I was trying to extrapolate what part of the face was where based on the very small amount of information I had from the sketch. The sketch of the standing woman in the skirt was an interesting one because it fulfilled my requirements to try on different body shapes, and it also had an interesting element of stylization where I wasn't quite sure where the full abdomen was. Maybe you could say that the proportions are just incorrect, and I'd probably have a hard time arguing they're not, but I still think it looks okay. The final one I chose because it just had an interesting perspective. Most of these sketches that I've cleaned up have all been just of people standing in various positions. This one had a nice, interesting dynamic angle and the hands outstretched, which were really fun to draw. Okay, that's everything. Thank you for watching. Honestly, when I started this, I thought I was going to end up with a lot of nice, clean drawings that might even be postable. And I think it's probably because I felt compelled to go to the color stage rather than just producing a lot of nice, clean line drawing. A lesson for next time, I guess.